Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're super excited as we prepare for the JP Morgan week in January and are looking forward to this great discussion focused on that. My name is Wendy Hurlbert, and I'm the President and CEO of Life Sciences BC, and we're thrilled to have you here. As we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining this event today from the Blake's Toronto offices, which are located within the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, which is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. I'd also like to acknowledge that many others are joining from within the traditional and ancestral territories of other areas across this beautiful country. For those that don't know, Life Sciences BC is a not-for-profit, non-governmental organization funded through membership and the generous contributions of our sponsors and partners. Our members include academic and research institutions, local and global companies, which are operating in digital and virtual health, medtech devices, diagnostics, biotech, and therapeutics, increasingly platform discovery companies, and then numerous companies and organizations that have identified the life sciences sector as a strategic vertical and provide invaluable support and services to our ecosystem. At each event, we like to welcome our newest members. We're always accepting new members. So here's a snapshot of those that have joined over the last couple of months. IPS, Javedi Prudential Clean Room Services, Smart Mom, the Terry Fox Foundation, TMX, and PI. Today's event was made possible by the support of our long-standing partner, Blake's. The Blake's Speaking Series is one of our most popular events. We want to thank Joe Garcia and the Blake's leadership team for their commitment to bring our sector together, showcasing innovation and supporting early stage companies. Their investment in LSBC and the life sciences ecosystem is invaluable. We are delighted to be holding this event virtually. It's actually the first time we've held a virtual event in a couple of years, I think. So it's a bit interesting to be back in this format. But the reason we decided to hold it virtually is because we knew this topic was of interest to people across the country and wanted to give everybody an opportunity to attend. In addition, we're tapping into numerous speakers that aren't BC based. So thank you in advance to the speakers that have agreed to join this event. So we're focusing on the JP Morgan conference, as I said, and I'm sure all of you are aware it's happening from January 8th to 11th. And as most of you know, the conference is one of the largest and most influential annual events in healthcare and life sciences industry, known to focus on networking, showcasing innovation, attracting investors, and provides a platform of connection across the board. And you're going to hear about many of those connections today. And opportunities to enhance your experience and your effectiveness while you're at JP Morgan. Navigating it can be a bit challenging, and so you've come to the right place to learn a little bit more about that. At all of our events, we also like to showcase some new and emerging companies. So in addition to the focus on JP Morgan, you're going to hear from two innovative companies that have exciting life sciences innovation to share with us. To lead today's event, I'd like to introduce Joe Garcia, a partner at Blake's. Joe is a partner in the securities group at Blake's and helps run the National Life Sciences Group. His practice focuses on corporate finance and mergers and acquisitions. He advises public and private companies, investment dealers, venture capital and private equity funds, and acts as an independent counsel to many boards. Before his career, Joe worked in corporate finance with the National Investment Bank and in clinical research with a multinational pharmaceutical company. He is a long-standing supporter of LSBC, a huge champion of our sector. And so with that, I'll hand it over to you, Joe.
Thank you, Wendy. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. We're very happy and delighted that you can join us this morning. I express that on behalf of Blake's and Life Sciences BC, who we've partnered with for a very long period of time. It's been over 25 years that we've been hosting this breakfast, and it continues to be an important event for bringing our community together. So just a few brief remarks. Last week, I was at a community event in Quebec, and a number of people used the phrase nuclear winter, that we were in a capital raising environment that, let's say, is less than favorable, which we all can appreciate. That being said, we've been through so many cycles over decades that when that phrase becomes common, I would argue or believe that we're at the trough in a cycle, or perhaps even beyond the trough. So I've always looked at it as the glass being half full, and that we have an amazing and resilient life sciences community across this country. And I believe truly that it has a long and bright future, in part because of the core entrepreneurial spirit that companies have and the determination to focus on what's important and hit milestones. Despite the current environment, money continues to be available to companies that do focus on their knitting and meet milestones. So I'll just name a few that we were proud to be involved with this year, but clearly demonstrate that there is money for companies that do achieve important milestones. One is, for example, Xenon, that recently raised US 345 million. It was a follow-on offering led by JP Morgan. Josh, Christian, and their team did an amazing job considering the capital public market environment at the moment. And we'll hear more about that later from Christian, but they definitely went above and beyond in helping Xenon close that transaction. And another example recently is enGene, which went through a going public transaction that raised in excess of US 138 million. Core team drove that transaction. Many different people assisted, but at the fundamental or core of it is their technology and the hopes and beliefs that it will be groundbreaking for patient populations around the world. And finally, as another example on the private side, Abdera raised US 110 million in a Series B financing earlier this year, which is testament to some of the, both sources of capital and quantum that can be raised in the right circumstances. So with that, I really look forward to our distinguished panel today and other speakers. And thank you again for joining us. With that, I have the opportunity or pleasure of introducing Tom Reeves to you. Tom is the co-founder as well as president and CEO of Ripple Therapeutics. It's a clinical stage company focused on improving ophthalmic therapeutics with controllable, sustained drug delivery. Tom has been CEO of Interface Biologics since 2008 and managed the sale of IBI's surface modification business to Evonik in 2019. Tom's prior roles include president and COO of Oculogics, president and CEO of Border Free Limited, president of Maricel Canada, and managing director of Maricel Europe. Tom started his career at the Boston Consulting Group and has degrees in economics and international relations from Harvard University and Australian National University. Please take a moment and warmly welcome Tom. And Tom, I spoke from notes that were provided to me, so if I got anything wrong, please correct it.
Thanks, Joe. No, you didn't get anything wrong. It just sounds like I'm really old based on all those things, but thank you. As Joe said, Ripple Therapeutics, clinical stage company based in Toronto, founded in 2020, a spin out from Interface Biologics following the sale of Interface to Evonik back in 2019. So Ripple was founded based on a technology we call Epidel, which allows us to create drug delivery implants and have controllable, sustained drug delivery without the use of polymers or excipients, which we think leads to better outcomes for patients, easier management care for physicians, and lower costs for payers. And while this technology is not specifically an ophthalmology technology, we focus on ophthalmology because we believe there's opportunities in several big markets where the current standard of care has challenges, whether it's duration, efficacy, safety, cost, or compliance. So the three areas we focused on first is in inflammatory retinal diseases, diabetic macular edema, retinal vein occlusion, where we have a dexamethasone prodrug implant, and we have compelling phase 2 data, which I'll share with you. Second is glaucoma, where we're focused on prostaglandin prodrug implants, and we have a really robust preclinical data set and now looking to raise money to get into the clinic. And then finally, dry AMD and geographic atrophy, early stage work that is looking to address some of the major issues there. So from a technology point of view, this describes that dexamethasone prodrug. So it's a very simple chemistry combining two dexamethasone molecules covalently linked to triethylene glycol. And this Ripple prodrug molecule has no biological effect on its own. But once it breaks down, we found that it has these really nice zero-order release kinetics. And the second discovery was that we could actually create these standalone implants made 100% of these prodrugs without any polymers or excipients, which allows for high drug loading and smaller implants. And you're able to tune the release based on chemistry, so either the underlying API or, in this example, the linker, or because it's surface-mediated drug release, you can change the form factor. And the surface area dictates the daily dose, and the diameter dictates duration. And the way this works is that these prodrug dumbbells dissolve off the surface and then quickly break down into component parts, in this case, dexamethasone and triethylene glycol. And despite the fact that this is a new molecular entity based on the covalent link, we were able to get a 505(b)(2) path from the FDA because of the short half-life of the prodrug when it devolves from the surface. And the beauty of this is, despite the fact that there's no polymers, you can use standard polymer processing techniques, solvent processing, heat processing to create these implants. So we started with steroids, but we've branched out into a number of different drugs, both ophthalmology and outside of ophthalmology. And the uniqueness of this technology is evident by the patent portfolio that we've been able to amass over the years with multiple patents approved, very broad coverage with our steroid patents and prostaglandin patents and composition of matter patents with the constructs that are our lead products. So again, initial focus on inflammatory retinal diseases, but also early work on both wet AMD and dry AMD. If I focus on the dexamethasone implant, current standard of care for these diseases are anti-VEGFs, which work well, about $3.5 billion of revenue. But there's challenges. Only 35% of patients are not treated well with anti-VEGFs. You have to do monthly or bi-monthly injections, and they're expensive, $12,000 to $14,000 a year. So secondary treatments are intravitreal steroids, often first line outside of the US, principally Ozurdex, which is an Allergan, now AbbVie product, about $500 million in revenue. And what we're trying to do with our target product profile with IB814 is to address the shortcomings with those current therapies. So controlled drug release at 6 to 12 months versus 2 to 3, a smaller needle, a tenth of the drug load, so 70 micrograms versus 700 micrograms, which we believe can potentially lead to a reduction in steroid-related complications. So we have a full preclinical data set published in Nature Communications a couple of years ago, but here's the summary. You have the typical Ozurdex burst release with a polymeric system, whereas ours nice zero release kinetics out to that target 6 months. The PD, this is a VEGF challenge model to induce vascular leakage, as you can see in the sham injection here. At 1 week, Ozurdex works well, ours works well as well. At 10 weeks, ours is continuing to work, whereas Ozurdex starts looking like the negative control, and ours is still working out to 6 months. And this last panel just shows the full degradation past those 6 months. So as I mentioned, we've just completed a phase 2 clinical trial, Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, Canada, 60 patients, RVO, DME, low dose, high dose, as well as both previously treated and naive patients. Just to show you some of the top line data. So the central subfield thickness is the swelling of your macula, which causes the reduction in vision. And you can see here that with both DME patients, we're able to demonstrate a significant reduction in that swelling with patients that have been treated for a long time, naive patients as well. And then with RVO, again, patients that have been treated a long time, and then patients that are naive. From a vision point of view, this is the simplest way to look at it from my perspective. 20/40 is driving vision. So you can see at baseline, very low percentage of patients that had driving level vision. And with our drug, they're able to 60 to 70% in both DME and RVO are at the point where they have driving vision. And from the point of view of reduction in treatment burden, this slide shows all of the treatments done prior to the injection of our drug, primarily with anti-VEGFs over the months prior. Again, this is treatment either single dose or dual dose, and you can see afterwards the reduction in treatment burden is significant, and the percentage of subjects with the reduction in treatment version and improvement in vision is again very high. So second area of focus is on prostaglandins, primarily to treat glaucoma. Glaucoma is an asymptomatic disease. It's primarily treated with self-administered eye drops, about a $6 to $7 billion market right now, growing significantly. But adherence is terrible because of the fact that it's an asymptomatic disease, so patients don't see better when they use these eye drops. It's sometimes irritating on the surface of the eye. Patients are older, they forget, etc. And so patients are losing vision despite the fact that this is a very treatable disease. So sustained release implants make a lot of sense, but the only product that's approved right now is Durysta, which is again an Allergan AbbVie product. And while it works with multiple treatments, it's shown irreversible corneal endothelial cell loss, which has limited the approval to the US and limited to a single treatment. So our focus areas, both intracameral implants for IOP lowering and intravitreal for both IOP lowering and neuroprotection. And our target product profile is again, 6 to 12 month release, small needle. And the key here is that it's a prodrug implant that doesn't swell. You can see the Durysta issue. You have a polymer implant that swells after 2 months, whereas ours shrinks. And the issue really becomes that you get, once the drug is gone, you still have this implant. And so in the the Durysta NDA, you saw multiple implants present at 3 months, despite the fact that 2 of these have already lost all efficacy. So our preclinical data, very briefly, with our latanoprost implant, the red range here is the Durysta data at 90 days. So you can see from an IOP lowering, we're right in that out to actually longer than the intent. This is out 19 months, but no loss of corneal epithelial density here. With the bimatoprost implant, again, below that range or in that range, we actually put a second dose in to test the safety, and again had no corneal endothelial cell density loss. You can see here the pictures that the implant is still there, so we put in one earlier. You can see it's not touching the cornea, and once the first implant is gone, you see the second implant here. And then finally, with the intravitreal, we're seeing a nice reduction in IOP and pupillometry, reduction in pupil size over time. So again, focus on ophthalmology, both retina and glaucoma, but we've also looked at other areas. So one of the areas of interest is central nervous system drugs, in particular areas where compliance is an issue, opioid use disorder, schizophrenia, etc. And we've got some early work where we've been able to demonstrate a sustained release of buprenorphine over 60 days, which again, we think opens up another new area for us. So we've raised 25 million between our seed and Series A. We're now targeting a 50 million plus raise in 2024. Top priorities are the glaucoma programs, as well as the pivotal enabling studies for IB-814, and continuing development of our ophthalmology product portfolio, as well as platform development. So with that, I'll stop and thank you for your time and attention.
Thanks, Tom. That was great, and appreciate you joining us today. It's now my pleasure to introduce Ian McBeath. Ian has spent more than 30 years in the biopharmaceutical industry. He has taken companies public, achieved significant partnering deals, and raised large amounts of capital on behalf of the companies he works with. He has been the founding CEO of 3 biotech companies. One of those companies was sold to Amgen for $1 billion. He recently helped organize Alpha-9 Theranostics here in Vancouver, which last year raised US $75 million to advance its products into the clinic. He has now taken up the position as CEO of Nagus, based on preclinical data that suggests that Nagus's technology could be a new way of treating serious eye diseases and disruptive of the current $30 billion market. With that, welcome, Ian.
Thank you, Joe. Just share my screen. On the wrong slide. Okay, can you all see that? Hopefully. Well, thanks for the opportunity to meet and talk with everybody today. Nagus is a company that is focused entirely on treating serious eye diseases, and this is based on a discovery made by our scientific founder David Burgoyne of some compounds that impact a completely underutilized pathway in inflammation. And inflammation is very much what's the cause of the problems at the back of the eye, persistent inflammation. And this pathway is the leukotriene pathway. At the moment, there is nobody working on this area in eye disease, but we have some very strong data that suggests this is the way forward. There's an increasing amount of scientific literature that says leukotrienes are involved in both the transition from dry to wet AMD, but also the processes involved in leukotriene it impacts all eye diseases, front of eye as well as rear of eye. I was going for a cup of coffee the other day with my wife here in West Vancouver, and we came across a woman that we know very well that we thought was going to be in Palm Springs, where she has a second home. And we said, "Oh, hi, how are you doing? You're not in Palm Springs." And with that, she burst into tears. This lady had just had a bleed in her eye. She was rushed to the ophthalmologist, who then said she would have to have an injection of anti-VEGF drugs into her eyeball once a month for the next 18 months. And she was completely distraught. She couldn't fly, she couldn't drive, she couldn't get to her home in Palm Springs. And this is a woman that lives on her own. So you can imagine the upset that this had caused in her life. And this is the sort of problem with people with eye disease that Nagus is seeking to try and help. The current treatments are in the main, certainly for back of eye disease, are, as partly you've heard from the previous speaker, injections into the eye of anti-VEGF compounds. And their purpose is to try and blunt or prevent the growth of the small blood vessels, which are stimulated by the presence of inflammation. These blood vessels are activated cells. They're bringing heat and supply to the swollen tissue, and they're very fragile, and they burst, and you get bleeding into the eye and release of other substances. And leukotrienes are now known to be very much the driver of these. Steroids also, as you've heard, have a place in treatment of serious eye diseases, but steroids have a problem in that the dosing has to be limited, and the length of time that you can use a steroid is also very limited, because it goes on to produce other problems. And I think we're all aware of the side effects of steroids. And in the eye, this can also give rise to glaucoma. But the market, though, is $30 billion for front of eye and back of eye disease. So it's a very significantly sized market, yet very underserved. And indeed, 30% of patients who start on the injections into the eye give up, and about 30% of patients won't even undergo this therapy. So there's a real need for therapy, not only that is effective, but also is acceptable. This is the pathway that actually happens with leukotrienes. If you look from the stimulus of arachidonic acid, it follows through with a trigger called 5-LO, which eventually releases both cystenyl and leukotrienes and leukotriene B4. Generally speaking, each of these have a part to play in eye disease, but both of them together are involved. So if you get one, you can block one, you will still have the problem with the other. What Nagus has done is identify a compound that will actually block both the release of both levels of leukotrienes. And it does this by blocking 5-LO. And I can show you the impact of this on in a clinical setting. These are clearly animal models. These are porcine models. So these are pigs, which are the closest eye structure to that of humans. On the left is an eye that's actually inflamed, and you can see beneath the cornea the structural damage, which is infiltration of cells and fibrous tissue. On the right is the eye that's then treated with the actual, in this case, an oral version of our compound, which is at the moment has the very sexy name of N0651. They will be given a product name to it, but you can see that orally treating of this at the front of the eye, there is complete resolution of the inflammation. This is the topical use of N0651, and this is particularly exciting because this is the back of the eye disease. So here you're getting a topical treatment that's actually showing efficacy at the back of the eye. On the left is the normal retina, nicely structured and even cells in the retina. In the middle is an inflamed retina. You can see the thickening, strong thickening of the retina, and lots of release of inflammatory cells into the fluid above the eye. On the right is the eye that's then been treated topically with N0651, and you can see that it's returned to almost a normal looking state. So clearly this compound and the others in the family of this compound are are showing great efficacy in preclinical models, and really we believe have a strong hope of really showing really disrupting this market and bringing in some therapies that are really acceptable and easy to use in the clinical setting. This is the team of Nages. I won't go through everybody on it. I'll point out Dr. Phil Davis on the right. For 25 years, head of inflammation research at Merck, and he focused on novel mechanism anti-inflammatories. And he's been a great resource for the company and worked very closely with Dave to try and find these inhibitors that were specific for 5-LO and would block both pathways and would also have no toxicity. On the left-hand side, our chairman is Julian Gangoli. Julian was president of Allergan North America for 19 years. And he was also a member of the executive team that sold the company to Actavis for $66 billion. So he certainly knows how to release shareholder value. He has been extremely helpful to us in introducing us to the leading companies in the ophthalmic area. Julian also is somebody that has spent so many years in this field. He knows what's required and what's not. And indeed, his interest in joining Nages was because when he was at Allergan, all of the products that were offered to them for potential licensing in, all of them were just variations on the current programs, better ways of giving VEGF, better ways of giving dexamethasone. And they said what was needed was something completely novel and new, and that's what he believed that Nages has got. So Julian persuaded me to come into the company, or at least to come in to help the start off of the company. And at the moment, we're looking to actually raise a seed round and take the product into the clinic within a year. The clinical pathway is helped because we've now drawn up a partnership with Aura. Aura are the world's leading CRO in the area of ophthalmics. The founder of Aura is a Harvard-trained ophthalmologist, and he wrote one of the first early papers on leukotrienes, and is a great believer in leukotrienes. So this is not a fee-for-service operation. This is actually a partnership that we have with them, and they will share a little bit of the upside when the topical product gets to market, not the oral product. So the program and the clinical trial they will do has been tested over again. It's a proprietary clinical trial protocol, and it takes about 5 months to run it through. They've done that time and time again. So we believe there's very quick clinical data we're going to receive on this.
That's great.
Just finally on the timelines, the red star there indicates actually that we just 2 weeks ago got a notice of allowance of our patents for both N0651 and the whole family of compounds, and this is composition of matter. We're looking to raise about $2 million, and that's just going to finalize our IND, and then we will start the human clinical study in just under a year. It should take less than a year to complete. We will then, and in topical therapy, you only need 2 studies, and the first study is considered part of the application study. So you only need to repeat that same numbers in a phase 3 and do a safety study. So these are quite short pathways to get the drug to market. And that gives us probably other milestone opportunities. Clearly, at the end of the first clinical study, we will have interest in the marketplace, we believe, for the compounds that we have. And obviously this will grow as we get further data. So we're raising 2 million. That'll give us about an 18-month runway. Pre-money valuation was set before we got the IP approval. So that probably should really be higher. Share price is 75 cents. We've already got 500,000 committed to that. We're looking to close by the end of the month. It may just drift into January, but we had a shareholder meeting yesterday. Very many thanks to Joe, who allowed us to use his offices. And I've got significant interest, so we're waiting to hear tomorrow and Friday just exactly whether we've reached our total. So that's it. Thank you. It does say questions, but I don't know whether we actually have time for questions.
I think towards the end, if there's time, Ian, but thank you so much for joining us today. Cheers. So it's now my pleasure to introduce you to Christian Barrow, who's the Executive Director, Life Sciences with JP Morgan Securities LLC, and he is based in Montreal, Quebec. Chris leads the life sciences commercial banking teams across the country. Their focus is to provide innovative financial products and networking to startup companies through advanced companies in the life sciences industry. His team specifically focuses on companies in the medical device, pharmaceutical, biotech, tools and diagnostics, specialty, contract manufacturing, and contract research spaces. Please welcome Christian. Cheers.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me. Thanks to Life Science BC for having me as well. As Joe mentioned, I'm Chris Barrow. I sit in Montreal and I lead JP Morgan's life science efforts in Canada. You know, I have to smile because we're talking about JP Morgan, so it's great press for us. But you know, the event is called JP Morgan Healthcare Week, but it has morphed into being more than what JP Morgan. The event has its origins in 1983 when a small boutique investment bank called Hamburg & Quist started and hosted this event. It was primarily for emerging biotech. In 2000, Chase bought Hamburg & Quist, and in the following year, JP Morgan bought Chase. So now it's called the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference. But let me just say this, it is not just JP Morgan Conference. When you think about conferences, you think of one roof like bio, where everything is hosted in one big convention center. This is not that at all. This is an aggregation of events and receptions and people hosting people in hotel suites. And it's all based in San Francisco. It's usually the second week in January. And it all revolves around Union Square. All the hotels that are around Union Square will have many people in the lobby and in hotel suites hosting events. So let me explain our event first, and then I'll talk a little bit about the actual week. Our conference is an invite only. It is primarily an equity research event. It has 3 tracks. 75% of there'll be about over 500 presenters from around the globe, all public companies, primarily public companies, I should say. 75% of those are companies that are followed by our equity research analysts. So they actually write reports on them. And think of the big pharma, big biotech, big medtech companies such as Merck and Novartis and J&J. On the medtech side, it's going to be the Baxters and Zimmers and Medtronics. And then on the biotech side, it's going to be companies even like the ones in BC, where BC is really well represented. Aurinia, AbCellera, Xenon, and Zymeworks all have presenting slots. That's 75% of the conference. Another, I would say, 15% is for healthcare services. These are big healthcare service groups in states that we have as clients. They're really presenting to bond investors, discussing what their CapEx needs are going to be for the next 2 to 3 years. And then the last 10% is what our investment bank controls. These are going to be slots that are given to emerging, privately held biotech, medtech, tools and services companies that we believe, the investment bank believes, that will go go public. We'll have an initial public offering in the US within 12 months, or there'll be a significant M&A. The investment bankers all have their prospects that they like, and they argue and debate to see who gets these slots. So these slots are extremely valuable. What differentiates our conference is that a lot of places you can register, and even potentially, if you pay an additional, get a slot to potentially present. This is all invite only. I know a lot of companies, a lot of my companies who have not been to the conference or been out to San Francisco during the conference will ask, can I get a ticket? And so for some, we'll be able to do that. But in reality, if you go to San Francisco and spend the absorbent amount of money for hotels, and you spend a lot of time in our conference, it's been a waste of your time, because this week is primarily a capital markets frenzy, right? So when you think about the conference, really what the magic is everything that happens outside of JP Morgan. You're going to hear from a couple speakers talking about their events like Resi and Biopartnering and Biotech Showcase, where they have partnering platforms where they're going to be potential investors and potential BD groups from pharma and medtech to talk to you about potential financing. But beyond any of those events, private equity firms, VC firms, all set up shop at hotel suites, and they're looking to have meetings. They're looking to get introduced. They're looking to have update meetings. It's not, it's going to be rare that you're going to get a term sheet or finalize a financing, but this is an opportunity to meet a lot of people in a short space of time, all in one place, and that's why it makes this event so popular. So, as I mentioned, we have about 8,000 people come to our event specifically. San Francisco gets inundated with the 35 to 45,000 people, hence why the hotel rooms are so expensive. I've seen in the chat rooms, the do's and don'ts, what's the best thing. So I think the first thing to think about this is that you need to be planning this months in advance. You need to be having outreach to potential VCs and private equity if you're trying to raise capital, and if you're doing licensing or collaborations, BD groups from both biotech and medtech companies. I think this is an event where if it's the first time you go, you're going to be overwhelmed, but the second and third and fourth and fifth year, you're going to be much better. My friend Ali has been to it 20 years running now. He's going to be able to better speak to how to organize yourself through this conference. And I think the thing is, there are lots of sites showing you the different events and whatever. But again, refer to my good friend Ali, along with Bio, he has an app, and that's free, and it's a Bio's guide to JP Morgan 2024. It lists pretty much all the events and receptions and things that are going on. So I know I'm speaking really quickly, so you can ask questions potentially later, or you can find me. Hopefully they'll share my email, and I'm happy to answer any questions after this. The other thing I want to tell you though is that the event starts on the 8th through the 11th, but unofficially starts on the 7th. On the 7th, there's a bunch of events going on, like the Dermatology Summit, Access China, along with receptions as well. One reception that you should be of note is Life Science BC has a reception 4 to 6 on Sunday. During the week, there's not so many receptions during the day, but at nighttime, all the law firms, all the accounting firms, the private equity firms, and VCs also have receptions. So it's another place to get to do networking. And the thing about JP Morgan that makes it magical, you'll be sitting in a Starbucks trying to avoid the rain, and you'll bump into 2 or 3 people you haven't seen in a long time. You start up a conversation, and next thing you know, you've got a meeting in 3 or 4 weeks post JP Morgan. One big recommendation is bring multiple pairs of shoes, because in years past it has rained and it's come down in cats and dogs, and it's been horrendous. So have a change of clothes and not your best shoes to be walking around. Get rest prior to the conference because you're going to be running from 7 till 10 every night for at least 3 nights. And again, happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I'm just glad it's called JP Morgan Healthcare Week. Anyways, thanks for all your time. And I look forward to answering whatever questions you may have. Joe, it's all yours.
Thanks a lot, Chris. That's great. It's now my pleasure to introduce Ali Artikani, who is the founder and managing director of Novatura Ventures. Ali is a technical and entrepreneurial corporate development and operations biotech executive with over 20 years of experience in managing life sciences projects and companies. His experience includes managing R&D projects in the areas of oncology, respiratory, infectious disease, CNS therapeutics, and medical devices, as well as fundraising, licensing, and M&A. Ali is the founder, as I mentioned, of Novatura Ventures. He's the co-founder and CEO of Optigo Biotherapeutics, the chair of the board of directors of Life Sciences BC, as well as entrepreneurial in residence at Innovate Calgary and associate at Creative Destruction Labs. Welcome, Ali, and look forward to your comments.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you to your team at Blake's for supporting this event. Thanks for LSBC and all the attendees for coming today. I've prepared a few slides, but maybe I could quickly share with you my experience 20 years ago when I was working for a small, actually LNP company out of UBC. And it was around October, November, and one of the VCs asked me if we were trying to do fundraising. And the guy said, "Are you going to JPM?" And I said, "Well, what is JPM?" He said, "Well, it's JP Morgan Healthcare Conference in San Francisco." I actually got on the phone and called JP Morgan office and wanted to see if I could attend their conference. I thought that's actually how you attend the conference. And the guy asked if we have which publicly traded company are we, or are we a ultra high net worth individual who participates in IPOs? And shortly after, I realized actually it's called JPM, but it's like people say go to a Taylor Swift concert, but you can't get in. You're going to be hanging out in the parking lot, and there's a bunch of other receptions and concerts around, and that's really called JPM. And 20 years ago, there weren't as many conferences as they are. I mean, I think both Biotech Showcase, Bio One-on-One, and Resi have done a good job trying to organize these meetings. But it was like, you know what? Go to the Hilton lobby, and you might run into CEO of Pfizer or Merck or head of BD at J&J. But if you don't know any of these people sitting in a Hilton lobby with people coming and going, it's very difficult. On top of that, after my first attendance at the JPM, I realized there's a lot of fantastic networking events. The global pharmas have networking events, accounting firms, law firms, service providers, as well as big banks and the boutique banks. But nobody really knew where all these things are. It was always like sitting and talking and hearing over, oh, so I hear there's a reception, and where is it? And trying to take notes, and it was the who's who. So, personally, this was one of my missions: is how can I do something so that early stage companies and people who don't have a 15, 20 years of knowing people, we can democratize the information. And 2018, we actually created a list and put on our website, and we noticed people were walking around with the PDFs. In 2019. Which turned out to be 2020 JPM, we actually launched the app, and of course then COVID happened, but we noticed about 1,000 people downloaded it. Just so you guys know, as of this morning, about 4,200 people have downloaded the app. That's quite a number, and over 30,000 events have been viewed on our app. We have about 200 events right now, 275. We think we'll have over 200 events that we've actually collected information with our partners at Bio. We're grateful for them for marketing the app. We're hoping that with the talk I'll give, this will make it a little easier. And the advice I'm giving is actually general. There's 2 major conferences as early stage biotech that everyone should attend. One is JPM, which is probably the largest networking conference for investors and partners, whether those partners are development partners or investment partners. The other one is Bio. So both are, these are both, fantastic events. But JPM turns out to be very expensive. You look at hotels right now, it's over $1,000 a night. And you want to make sure every second of your time there is well spent. Otherwise, you'll come back and you'll come back tired and you'll wonder where your time went. So quickly, I'll go over these 4 areas. Again, it's applicable to any conference. I think you want to start by really having really well planning, research, and figure out who you want to meet, how you want to meet with them, and reach out to them. Your communication, presentation skills, hone them before you go. Figure out what your elevator pitch is. What your deck will be. What will be the messaging that we'll have. Networking and relationship building. This is a fantastic conference because we are even much more than before, especially after COVID. We're relying on softwares like Zoom and Microsoft Teams. This is a great place to meet people and have a few minutes of FaceTime and build a relationship. This is not a place to get a deal done. Unless you've done your deal over the last 6 months and this is just a celebration, this is really a door opener. This is where you get to know people. And then I'll go over logistics and resource management. So just to start in terms of research and strategic planning, you do want to prioritize and plan and have a flexibility to adapt. So, break down your day. JP Morgan starts on Sunday afternoon and then goes out to Thursday. You want to, block up your day and figure out who you're going to meet and where you're going to meet with them in the mornings, lunch, afternoon, and dinner. Figure out where you're going to be around San Francisco. Finding a meeting place is challenging. A lot of people do meet in various hotel lobbies, but I can tell you, you have to figure out where and how you're going to meet with them. Make sure whomever you're going to meet, you do quite a bit of research on them and the market trends. Bio put together, and I'm going to put it in the chat box for you, a phenomenal sort of overview of all the global pharmas, what they've been doing in terms of global licensing, what area they're interested in. If you're meeting with a global pharma, you want to download this PDF, and I'm going to put it in the chat in a few seconds, and make sure that you know who you're meeting and you've done the proper research. You also want to really do some research on the people you're meeting and figure out what their backgrounds are, because you will have a few minutes with everyone, and you don't have a lot of time. So you want to be very prepared. You utilize the tools. I mean, right now, 20 years ago, there weren't that many tools. It was literally all random. We're really blessed. Now there are several conferences at JPM that you can attend, and you can actually figure out who you're going to meet and actually send invitations. So that the biotech showcase, I find it's mostly targeted towards investments and investors. Bio one-on-one is more around partnering and licensing, although both of these have both VCs and pharma. And Resi is more like a fast speed dating one-on-one, and you'll get introductions to all 3. And then, of course, there are, as I said, as of right now on our app, we have 170 networking events, and you want to use all these to figure out where to go. So there are networking events around digital health. There's networking events around oncology, immuno-oncology, cell and gene therapy, and so on and so forth. And the last one, be prepared to have a very concise, strategic presentation and a clear value proposition. You want to really figure out your story before you show up. The next one is networking and relationship building. This is, as I said, if you don't already have a relationship and this is the first time you're meeting that global pharma you've been talking to out of Germany and they're flying in, it's a fantastic place to grab a cup of coffee or a beer with them at one of the networking sessions and talk to them and not just about your project, but about your personal interest in trying to build a relationship. This is not a place to get married. This is a place to have that first date, and you really build that relationship in a face-to-face setting. Again, networking tools. Make sure you use your LinkedIn. as well as other tools that you may have that, you're contacting people, see their backgrounds, connect with them in advance. If you don't have a direct connection with someone and you're trying to connect with them, see if your LinkedIn, you have someone with a common connection. And as well as other people that could potentially provide warm introductions. Warm introductions go a long way. And then, of course, after JPM, and maybe not right after JPM, but maybe a few days after JPM, do follow up with the contacts that you make there. It's really important that you keep your presentations engaging and focused. If you're going to one of these meetings where like Biotech Showcase or Resi or Bio One-on-One, make sure you have your deck. This cannot be your detailed 20, 30 slides. This really should be 4 to 5, maybe maximum 8 slides, where you can very concisely tell your story. You want to have a very compelling short pitch. You want to have a really good elevator pitch. If you run into someone literally in one of these elevators coming down from your room or at one of the receptions, you want to be able to quickly talk to them about it if the opportunity rises. Prioritize your topics. You don't want to get into too much detail. You really want to give them the couple of big things. These people are talking to hundreds of people over the next 4 or 5 days, whether they're investors or global pharma. So you want to be able to give them the big story first, and then detail and the follow on, and then emphasize uniqueness. What makes you different. A lot of time you can say, well, this is where everybody has failed, and this is where we're trying to solve, or this is where everybody's looking at that, and that's our differentiation. The last one is logistics and resource management. Obviously, if you haven't booked your hotel, you're looking at over $1,000 a night for anywhere around, but it's okay. Wear comfortable walking shoes, maybe book at the airport or Oakland, across a bridge, and take the metro in. But and also there's Airbnb. In terms of scheduling travel time, make sure you have enough travel time, even within meetings inside a hotel, going from one place to another place. Everything takes longer. In years before, I can tell you out of 20 years, I would say at least 50% of the years we've had really cold, it's been cold weather and lots of rain. I mean, last year it was flooding. I literally had my pantsuit soaked up all the way to my knees a couple of times. So make sure you have an umbrella with you, and make sure you have enough. If you're meeting in different hotels, you don't want to show up late. You do want to have enough travel time. Be mindful of safety and security, and this is really unfortunate, and unfortunately it's been getting worse every year. There's a lot of homelessness around central San Francisco. We do have a safety section on our app that gives you some tips. I've had homeless people shout in my face. It can be very uncomfortable. Late at night, going to a reception, try to travel in groups, and balance professionalism and having fun. I mean, ultimately, in the evening, try to go to one of these receptions, grab a beer or a glass of wine. Most of these, if not all of them, are complimentary, and try to meet some fun people. Last but not least, download this app. It's a must-have for JPM. This is something I wish I had 20 years ago when I started going, and I'm really glad that we're bringing it to everyone for free. And hopefully you'll enjoy JPM and you find lots of good partnerships. And remember, this is very different than the downturns, as Joe Garcia said back in 2008 and 2001. There was no money back then. Right now, there are deep pockets in short hands, but there are deep pockets. So lots of financing are being raised. We just have to make sure we can get those people to extend their hands and get you the money you need. Good luck.
Thanks, Ali. That was great. And seriously, the app is a must-have and helps you navigate a complex environment. So Christian's and Ali's comments are bang on. Just to add a little bit to layer in, we're in a highly integrated global ecosystem in life sciences. And people that have worked in the space, whether they're professionals like entrepreneurs or executives at companies, or advisors, whether it's legal or accounting or whatnot, to the extent that they are familiar with the industry, they've likely been working in the industry for an extended period of time and have relationships at a minimum cross-border between Canada and the States, if not globally. right? So the vast majority of the files I work on, counsel is not local. It is somewhere in the States, Boston, wherever, San Francisco, you name it, or Far East or into Europe. So one of the things you can take advantage of in order to potentially get meetings if you don't know people at particular companies is to tap into that deep set of relationships that your advisors or colleagues may have. Not everyone can, call 100 people on behalf of an individual or a company, but I know that there's a very open collegial environment in this space. So if people can help others, they generally will take the time to do so. So think about whether people in your network can help to open up some doors that may benefit you during what has turned out to be a wonderful week. Like I've gone over 20 years as well. And it's a great opportunity to meet in person people that I've only ever dealt with on the phone or by Zoom. So now it's my pleasure to introduce you to Allison Gaw, who's a principal with Amplitude Ventures. Allison has 20 years of experience in the life sciences and drug development industry, managing strategy at the interface of science and business. Currently, Allison is a principal at Amplitude, driving investments in precision medicine technologies and advising strategic planning and business development for portfolio companies. Previously, she held roles in business development, IP, and corporate strategy at Chinook Therapeutics, Sierra Oncology, and Arbutus Biopharma. Before moving to Vancouver, Allison was a consultant at Boston Consulting Group and LEK Consulting. Welcome, Allison. Thanks for joining us today.
Great. Thanks, Joe, for the introduction. And, Allie is always a hard act to follow. And so, many of the tips and tricks, in all the years that I spent down at JP Morgan, both when I was living in San Francisco and in the previous years as a member of startups like Chinook and Sierra, are all very applicable. And so definitely want to echo a lot of what Allie said is about being prepared. Now that I'm on the other side of the table as an investor, wanting to share a little bit of the tips and tricks in that regard. And it really echoes on Allie's theme of be prepared and do your research. So I think for anybody thinking about going to JP Morgan Week, because of how expansive, the opportunities there are now, there's just so many different people. In addition to the investors there's all the different conferences. So you really want to know, what is your purpose? Why are you going to JP Morgan Week? Right? Because of the costs and the expenses in that regard. So you really want to make sure that you have your strategy and your purpose. For a lot of people, it is meeting with investors and trying to either get a deal with pharma, trying to get a deal with investors. And as Ali said, make sure that's not your expectation. Your expectation is to start to open doors and make connections. And so from an investor's point of view, we all have different purposes when we're at JP Morgan as well. And it is really dependent on the fund and where in the fund's life cycle you are. So funds that are very early in their life cycle are likely, very open and active to meeting companies, increasing their deal flow. And, looking at partnering with other syndicates. However, companies that are later in their fund cycle, may have made a lot of investments already. They may be looking to raise their next fund. They're typically not going to be as interested in meeting with companies. They're going to be spending their time meeting with other investors, potential LPs, high net worth individuals, as well as the pharma companies and others who can help their existing portfolio companies. So it is really important that you do your research as to who you're meeting with and where the fund is in their life cycle to really understand whether or not they could be a partner and a fit for your company. Many of the times that, we go there, as I said, our priority is to meet with other VCs, so syndicates that we can work with. Right now, especially in this environment, a lot of venture capital firms are focused on their existing portfolios. We want to help them. We want to make sure that they survive and they grow. And so we spend more of our time, with companies that we think can help the existing portfolio, whether or not through partnerships with new technologies or partnerships with pharma. in that regard. So the other tip I have for how to be memorable, I think as Ali said, there's a lot going on. It is actually very difficult to be memorable in these 30-minute meetings. One thing to do is make sure you follow up. The likelihood that somebody is going to remember exactly what you said in one meeting out of 30 for the course of the week is actually quite low. And so make sure you follow up, and make sure you follow up both immediately after the meeting, but also likely the week after. Give people a little bit of time, a little bit of a break to decompress, and make sure then you follow up with the fuller pitch deck, and so that they can remember you and remember why there is interest and why they took your meeting in the first place, in that regard. And so I think, from the investor side, those are the tips and tricks that I can give you. Just as somebody who's been to JP Morgan for a number of years, I would also say, don't fill up your schedule 100% ahead of time. Sometimes those, opportune meetings at a coffee shop, that you happen to see someone you haven't seen a lot of, give yourself time to have those conversations. Give yourself time to say, hey, someone you're passing in the street, hey, let's grab a drink, tomorrow. So I would definitely say don't actually try to make your schedule 100% full before you get there, because you'll miss some opportunities like this that are really nice to have, and is really one of the purposes of being in San Francisco during this week, is to be able just to cross paths with people that you hadn't imagined. And then I think the last thing I'll leave you with, because I want to make sure we have enough time for Q&A for the full panel, is, I think I saw a lot of the questions come about is, what are some can't miss events? So again, because there's so much out there and so many options these days, I would say that's a really hard mentality to have. I don't think that there are any can't miss events. So again, go back to your strategy and your purpose and what are you trying to achieve, and balance that, as Ali said, with having fun, right? Who do you want to hang out with? Who do you want to just grab dinner with afterwards, or grab a drink with late at night, and just have chats with that regard, and don't feel like you have to try to hit every single event, because that's not going to be as productive. So with that, I'll let Wendy open up our panel.
Thanks, Allison. So Christian and Ali, if you can rejoin us. So that has been a huge amount of advice. So thank you very much. As I don't know if you guys are watching the chat, but there's lots of dialogue questions, and also lots of people jumping in and trying to help each other. So that's great, and that's what makes VC fantastic. So a couple of things that you've covered off. There's been a lot of questions about hotels, and I think Ali and Christian, you both mentioned that the hotels in the San Francisco area are super expensive, and I think any of us that have booked in there know that. So do you have any advice particularly about hotels? I'm going to turn to you, Ali, first, because I think you mentioned even something about Oakland. Should you cram yourself into a seedy little hotel at this point in time in San Francisco, or focus more on public transportation, or just accept the fact that you're going to pay a lot of money for hotels? So any advice you have on that, knowing that everything is in the
it's difficult as a small biotech company to justify paying $1,000, $1,500 a night, but you have to put that in the balance of if that means potentially you'll be able to get a deal done with someone, or you're going to make that connection with this either global pharma or major VC, or someone traveling from Japan or Europe, which, when you think about it, for you to travel all the way there and meet with them, even if they give you the time, you'll be paying more for hotels and flight. So you have to put that in a balance. But at the end of the day, last time I checked, there's still some rooms available at the airport. You can take the metro in and out, Oakland, across the bridge. And also Airbnb. I mean, it is what it is. And then, I've done this a year where me and 4 other executives, bunked up in a Airbnb, and I think our cost was down to $200 a night per person, and that's totally reasonable. But if you have,
So,
and this is
I
what planning it. Yeah, in
Yeah.
future next year, you want to start booking this in September or August.
Yeah, we booked ours very early. I certainly have heard of more and more people staying in Airbnbs. I would say last year I stayed with friends in Marin County, which was fantastic because it was free. But I actually ran into a problem trying to get an Uber to take me home at the end of the evening. And so this year I'm not doing that, because if it hadn't been for somebody kind of agreeing to have me be their stop on their way home, and then we got picked up by an Uber, I'm not actually sure what I would have done. So just something to think about. It seems like being near the BART, if you're going to be outside of the city, is a really good suggestion.
Yeah, so as someone who's lived in the city before, you know, the traffic around Union Square and Soma is bad, but the traffic in other parts of San Francisco itself are also bad. So I think it was Will or somebody who suggested, you know, Oakland and BART. So yeah, anything along the BART line is just way more, you know, reliable than a taxi or an Uber. So even if, you know, you're up in Fisherman's Wharf, which is quite close to Union Square, it can take you half an hour to get there versus 15 minutes on the BART gets you to Oakland. So
yeah. Okay, thank you. And Jack Lee just put in that apparently there's a hostel near Union Square that at least had some rooms recently. So maybe worth checking out. Okay, I want to talk, I think you've all really spoken about, you know, being prepared and understanding your objectives. So some logistical questions I want each of you to answer. So one, business cards. So do you use business cards? There's a real mix I'm finding about whether people even use business cards at all anymore. So Allison, I'm going to let you answer that one.
I think it's a personal thing. So for me, yes, I still use business cards. I still take business cards. It is a helpful reminder for me, as I said, because of having how many meetings that day. And just being able to follow up with somebody afterwards. I often will write notes on the back of somebody's business cards so that I remember certain things, like if something stuck with me in that regard. I've seen really cool technology when it comes to business cards. Last year, people had QR codes and on their phones. And so people who tend to be more tech savvy or who like that can go that route. But I personally have no issues. And I am somewhat traditional in that sense that I like business cards.
Christian?
I'm an advocate of business cards. Just like Allison, I write lots of notes, and we take lots of notes during meetings. But you go to receptions, or you run into somebody at a cocktail, or you run into somebody at Starbucks or whatever, and you haven't seen them. Especially since I moved back to Canada 2 years ago, they don't remember that I moved back. Here's a reminder. And then it is. I do this at nighttime. I go home to the hotel, look at the cards I received, and start prioritizing who I'm going to start following up with. Because if I wait till the end of the week to do that, I'll forget completely because there's so many meetings. And especially if you're meeting with VCs, they're going to have 30, 40, 50 meetings, right? So it's just another reminder of who you are. So I mean, I'm old school, so I always have cards.
No, that's why I'm asking. Ali?
Absolutely. The way I do it is I've got a notebook, and every time I meet somebody, I try to tape the business card on top of that, and I just keep track of who I've met. And I'm also still, I guess, old school. I notice people use those LinkedIn QR codes, and that's fine. But for me, I have a better memory when I have someone's business card, and I always hand out my business card.
And that actually brings up something about LinkedIn as well. So I think a lot of us use it, but for different purposes. You also have to be very careful. I will admit that I am somebody who is actually quite protective of my LinkedIn network. So I don't actually accept all requests because I like to ensure when somebody says, hey, you're connected to this person, that I actually know who it is and I can make that introduction. I feel comfortable that I have a close enough relationship that I can make that introduction for someone. And so if everybody assumes that, oh, I can just go to LinkedIn and connect with somebody that I've met once through these meetings, I wouldn't make that assumption. And so therefore, try not to use LinkedIn as a way of just connecting with everybody willy-nilly.
So Allison, you read my mind. I was going to ask that next question. A couple of people have been talking about the LinkedIn QR codes, which I've certainly seen more and more people use as well. And wanted to ask the next question about LinkedIn. So you've explained your approach. Christian, what about you? Would you recommend to people that want to meet with you that, or even right after they've met you, that they connect via LinkedIn, or do you take a similar?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to meet them via LinkedIn, but I'll be completely honest. I need to meet you 2 or 3 times before I remember your name, and it this comes back to me. I apologize. I meet so many folks, and they're you write me a note, and I have to go back to my notes to see who everybody is. But no, I'm more open with my LinkedIn, and I'm happy to connect. I may not be able to provide introductories to everybody that they're seeking introductions, but yeah, no, I'm open to LinkedIn for sure.
Ali?
Definitely. I think, unlike Allison, unfortunately, I've accepted a lot of people. I think I have over 11,000 people that are connected on LinkedIn, and I can't say I know most of them. I know a lot of them, but not all of them. I do use LinkedIn also carefully in terms of finding out who I'm connected with through various connections. And, the way I accept LinkedIn invitations is if I have a lot of mutual connections, that gives me comfort. Usually if it's more than 15 or 20, then I know that at least there's 15 or 20 people I know, and I look who they know, and then I accept them, and then I take it from there. But, LinkedIn is really critical. I've built Novator Ventures. A lot of our advisors, I found them all through LinkedIn. My current business partner in my ophthalmology company, I found him through LinkedIn. So I think it's something that it's not just because you meet someone and then you go on LinkedIn. A lot of time you actually do reach out, through a cold call on LinkedIn, and you do find some phenomenal people.
I would just also say that I'm able to follow companies. Sometimes you try to get on an email websites or email newsletters. That doesn't always happen. So you just start following them via LinkedIn, and you see their posts, so you can stay fresh in terms of what they're doing. And then if there's something that happens, that you can reach out to them, that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, thank you for that. I mean, there's definitely different approaches, and everybody uses it a little bit differently. So I think it's an important thing to talk about, because there are 2 approaches. I mean, I'm sure especially if you are an investor, you're going to get bombarded with people for LinkedIn requests right after you've met them, or even trying to set up meetings that way. But of course, there are the other conferences that you can do business partnering through as well. There is a question that is asked about the etiquette of just showing up for events. That if you don't have an invite, or if you're not on their list. Does anyone want to tackle that one?
Yeah, I'll take it. So look, as being a service provider, I'm not always invited, right? And so I'm going to be judicious. I don't want to disbarge in. I will go there if I think I know a fair amount of people that I can connect with, or if I know a partner or somebody hosting the event. For companies, look, there's lots of receptions, and you can get a free drink and some dim sum or whatever. I think if you're going to use your time well at these receptions, there has to, as Ali and Allison have mentioned, you have to plan it, right? And so if you go to, let's say you go to Hogan Lavelle, sorry, Joe, and there's an event on Monday night, and you don't know anybody at Hogan, but you're going there because you heard it's a decent event, great, but there's going to be 1,000 people, and they're all going to be running around, and it's going to be hard to connect. So you have to figure out who's going to be in those events and have some way to communicate to get in front of them, because that's the whole idea, right? So, yes, if you're a company, emerging company, you can probably go to the front of the line, just give them the card, and you can probably get in. But it's got to be worth your time, right?
Okay, thank you. So I'm gonna give you each one final closing comment of what's the most important piece of advice you would like to share. It has to be in under 10 words. So, Ali?
I'll
You're
make
gonna
it
be
2 words. 2 words. Be prepared.
Okay. Allison?
Also,
I'll say be realistic with your expectations and have fun.
Excellent. Christian, you have one word.
yeah, I would say get ready to run, right? And just don't hesitate. Be ready. Just be ready some Monday morning at 7 a.m. Guns fired, and go. Right? You're gonna spend all that money to get out there. It's great to have coffee and talk to somebody from BC, but if you see them all the time, that's not the place to be talking to them. You want to be connecting with new people, investors, R&D people, BD people. Get out there and run. So.
Okay, well, with that, thank you very much for the great advice. For everybody in attendance, feel free to continue to ask questions in the chat, because it's very clear that there's a lot of people that are willing to share their expertise. I'm going to turn it over to Joe, because for the next couple of minutes or 10 minutes or so, we're going to hear from the people that are holding the non-JP Morgan conferences for an overview and a little bit of advice for that. So over to you, Joe.
Thanks. I'll next introduce Alejandra Balaguer. She is currently the Business Development Manager at Life Sciences Nation and spearheads initiatives in the US Midwest and Canada. She is an accomplished professional in life sciences with a background in marketing and sales within the pharmaceutical industry in companies such as Novartis and Leo. She has a strong educational foundation in pharmacy and a master's degree in innovation and entrepreneurship, and brings a unique blend of scientific expertise and business acumen to the table. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Joe. So it's great to meet you all, and I hope you're not scared because of what you just heard. But yeah, one of the things that Life Science Nation is known for is RESI. RESI conference is what we've been doing for like 10 years, and it's really become the gold standard for early stage funding. So what really stands out about RESI is why it's so known is that it's the conference out there that it's focused on early stage funding, and it has filled the niche in the market that needed a new kind of conference. It has been very successful over the years, and what we understand as early stage startups would be in terms of fundraising. So startups that are looking from seed to Series B, for example. The RESI conference at JPM is hybrid conference. It is the 9th in person, and then the 10th and the 11th, it's virtual. And it consists on partnering. So what they were saying before, like a speed dating. So you get to schedule meetings for like half an hour with different investors. And that's something that's proven very valuable in the past. So RESI allows every company to attend in their own way. You can attend in person one day, you can attend the 3 days. The first day it's in person and the other 2 virtual, or you could only attend virtually if because you cannot make it to San Francisco or because of budgeting, for example. The other thing that is key about RESI is the unique approach that they have to partnering. So RESI provides an efficient platform for startups to connect with active investors in the life science arena, of course. And what they've done is they have a curated database where startups can search the investors, filtering in terms of what the investor wants to invest in. So indication, sector, subsector, what type of allocation they want to invest. Is it 5 million? Is it 10 million? Is it a few $100,000? And so this is great for startups to actually have a good outreach strategy and to be able to reach out to the investors that will actually have an interest in their companies. Resi also allows to have the platform has already opened, and therefore once you register to Resi, you can actually start scheduling all of your meetings right now for January. And that helps in what everyone was saying today about be prepared. You can already start preparing 1 month prior to actually attending Resi. So I'm gonna put my email in the chat, and I'm gonna send the link for the Resi registration. And if you have any other doubts, you can email me, and then we can schedule any calls so I can answer any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the information. I'll now introduce Lila Taylor. Since 2015, Lila has played an integral role in shaping and expanding Demi Colton events and products. She is the Chief Business Officer of Demi Colton and builds relationships with biotechnology and pharmaceutical companies, industry stakeholders, and venture capitalists to help innovate conferences, and continues to seek out the most promising biotech companies. Her background includes having acted as a director of alliance management at KinMed, a biotechnology company specializing in clinical proteomic biomarkers, and as former head of the presenter selection committee and client manager at Technology Vision Group. Please welcome Lila.
Thank you so much, Joseph. I want to start by saying thank you so much for including me. I love working with Canadian companies and have done it for the last 20 years, so I always look forward to our Canadian attendees and presenters. I also want to agree with Allison that the number one thing that everyone can do to stand out is follow-up. Something everyone can do, and relevant quick follow-up after the meeting can make the difference between the funding and the not funding. So thank you so much, Allison. So Biotech Showcase, which takes place during Healthcare JP Morgan Week, is now celebrating its 16th anniversary. We're located at the Hilton Union Square, and I like to call it a get-together for our 3,500 closest friends. We expect 3,500 or more to attend this year. We expect, just as far as a breakdown, we will have 1,000 or more registered investors. We have 400 presenting companies, and those include both private and public companies from all over the world. We've also seen a huge growth in our seed showcase, which is one of our tracks, which are seed stage companies. We will have over 100 presenting this year. We've actually had to make more space for them. In total, we have about 2,300 unique companies out of those 3,500 attendees. We represent 35 countries. The other thing to mention is that last year we had 8,000 scheduled meetings through our bespoke Partnering One system, which was designed for Biotech Showcase, and we expect to have more this year. So not only will we have the full program of 400 presenting companies, we have 3 days of programming that covers everything from specific therapeutic areas to fundraising, to speak with pharma. Also, we have a Heard Around the Square at the end of the conference, which will include members of the press talking about what they expect the trends to be that year. Other things to mention about Biotech Showcase is that while we do have the in-person event, January 8th through 10th, we also include virtual partnering at no additional charge. Something that we also, and that will be January 16th through 17th. We also like to mention there's a place for everyone at our meeting. We encourage service providers to attend. We love our seed companies and our presenters, nonprofits, law firms, pharma, everyone's going to be there. So we welcome you there as well. We do still have company presentation slots available. And if you're interested, contact me directly. I'm going to put information in the chat because I will need to leave after this. I think that I've covered everything except to mention that we actually have 3 tracks within Biotech Showcase. It's all under the same roof. So our tickets are inclusive. If you go, you get to go to the receptions, all the different tracks, you have free reign. We have our Biotech Showcase, which is our main and oldest track. We have our Seed Showcase, which is on a separate track, but also has programming. And we have our Digital Medicine and MedTech Showcase, now celebrating its 8th anniversary, which also has programming, presentations, and its own track. So I want to thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to seeing you in January.
Thanks, Lila. That was great. And finally, I have the opportunity to introduce Mackenzie Vernetti, who is BIO's Vice President of Partnering, where she manages the development and administration of the BIO one-on-one partnering system, the most widely used B2B partnership platform in the life sciences industry. During her time at BIO, Mackenzie has facilitated more than 500,000 one-on-one partnering meetings at BIO events around the world. She leads a team of 6 staff and works diligently to make identifying and meeting your next strategic partner easier and more efficient so that life sciences companies can develop therapies, foster and propel the industry forward. Welcome, Mackenzie.
Thanks, Joe. It's really good to be here. Appreciate being welcomed. A little bit about BIO and what we're doing during JPM week. It's a really unique opportunity in that it's just strictly partnering. So we have use of the BIO one-on-one partnering system. We have over 1,700 participants to date, and that number grows every day. That includes almost 400 investors so far. We also have we have a little over 1,300 meetings already pre-scheduled for January. Last year, we had 5,700 meetings scheduled through our system. So we're definitely expecting to see a record-breaking year. In addition to use of the partnering system, we know that meeting space can be hard to come by. So we also have set up shop at the San Francisco Marriott Marquis, which is a great gathering place. That lobby is always overrun by people running into one another. And it's a very central location, right close enough to Union Square, where you can actually book our meeting space through our partnering system at no additional charge. So you just register to get into the partnering system. You self-schedule your meetings. We have it's BD and licensing meetings as well as investor meetings. You can see all of the participating companies and investors right on our website before you sign up for us. So definitely take a look at that and see who you can meet. And like I said, our numbers are growing every day, and more people are being added to the system. So we're really we're looking forward to a very active partnering event on site at the Marriott Marquis.
Great. Thanks a lot, Mackenzie. So just in wrapping up, thanks everyone for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in San Francisco during the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference. And with that, I'll finally say thanks to Wendy and the entire Life Sciences BC crew for putting on another outstanding event. Thanks, and over to you, Wendy.
Okay, thanks, Joe. So I guess to recap some of the great advice we've heard, and thank you all for being so active on the chat. Be prepared, have your elevator speech ready to help you stand out and be succinct. Set realistic objectives and expectations. Be sure to follow up, and be sure to set yourself up for success by wearing comfortable shoes, have water with you, snacks, and don't underestimate all the comments about rain, because there was flash flooding happening last year. So umbrellas and raincoats, unless you want to get what you're wearing wet, is really good advice. But most importantly, have fun. Rome was not built in a day, as we all know. And so these meetings are steps to be able to advance your science and develop really important connections. If you are attending JP Morgan, this has been mentioned in the chat, but Global Affairs Canada does have meeting rooms available. There was a link from Ryan in the chat, so keep that in mind. LSBC has negotiated discounted rates for Biotech Showcase and Resi for our Life Sciences BC members. So please connect with Joanne Lynn, our membership manager, if you're interested in that and haven't taken advantage of that already. As was mentioned, we are having a BC networking event, which is supported by JP Morgan on Sunday, January 7th from 4 to 6. So please reach out to us if you haven't already registered for it and are interested in attending. We will also have our Deputy Minister of Jobs, Economic Development and Innovation with us, Fazil Millar. So really looking forward to making some great connections and really leading the BC delegation and showing BC strong while we're there. We are also creating a BC delegation booklet, which will both be printed and online. You've missed the print date if you hadn't already told us you were going, but we can update the online version. So please also reach out to us about that. And I want to thank all of our speakers, Christian, Ali, Allison, Tom, Ian, Mackenzie, Alejandra, and Layla. Thank you to Blake's, huge thanks to Joe, and also want to thank Blake's Toronto team for allowing me to participate in this event from their Toronto offices. That's been fantastic. Big thanks to our events team, Ryan, Claire, and Patty, and our marketing team, Joanna and Dane. We have our co-ops that have been working really hard on this event, and it's great to have them as part of our team. We do have a few events coming up that might be of interest, which I'm going to rapid action go through them. Tomorrow night is our holiday party. We still have a few tickets left, not many. So if you're interested in attending, please reach out soon. Our biotech for the non-biotech scientists is happening mid-January. This is 201. So if you've already taken the 101, this is sort of your next advancement into the world of biotech. Career Connect Day, January 26th, then Access to Innovation in February. So, and lastly, I would like to thank all of our annual sponsors who really support LSBC so generously and allow us to do all the great work that we're trying to do to advance the sector. And with that, I will let you go. Thanks for attending today. As Claire mentioned, the recording will be available before the JPM event. And thank you again to Blake's.